Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
I am ready for the event.
WAAY-TV, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is WAAY-TV. How do you hear me?
I read you loud and clear. How me?
We read you, Tim. Good morning from Huntsville. This is Josh Barrett at WAAY-TV. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I know you got a very busy week with the new crew coming up this weekend. One of the flight controllers that I talked to here in Huntsville said her favorite part about Scott Kelly's mission was watching you all welcome new crewmates to the ISS. She said you could feel the joy and the anticipation as you're waiting on your crew. So can you talk about that a little bit? What's it like from your perspective as you're preparing to welcome new crew?
We know it's a very interesting time because we had 6 people on board, and then we lost half of our crew. And Tim, you and I have had sort of a quiet time here. You know, it's just a reduction of 3 people, but it's a big station. And you know, we're anticipating this new crew. We're setting out their clothes, and we'll set up Jeff's sleeping bag. But I remember that moment coming on board and seeing that crew that had been here for a while, and so that'll be our role now. And we're just really looking forward to seeing Jeff and Alexi and Oleg on board. It'll be an exciting time and fresh blood here on Space Station.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch you guys welcome them as well. I know also next week you have a supply mission coming courtesy of a Decatur-made Atlas V rocket. Have you got a chance to look at the cargo manifest? Is there anything catching your eye that you're looking forward to on that mission?
You know, not in particular. There's, you know, for every time we have a mission, there's always a crew preference container. And so we'll get a few things that are special to us, just a few items. That'll be nice. You know, maybe a few more foods that we don't have up here right now. But in general, I think when we have a cargo vehicle come, it's really a time for us to really focus on taking care of all that stowage and getting things put in the proper place. I think that's probably our main focus when we get a new vehicle here on board.
Now, I saw last week, Tim, that you had to repair the urine processor assembly on the space station. I know that's a piece of equipment they build here in Marshall. My question for you is when something breaks on the ISS and the people who know how to fix it are here on Earth, walk me through that process. What do you guys have to do? You know, you can't just call a plumber up there on the ISS.
You know, after the last week and a half, I feel like I've earned half my degree in plumbing and electrician work. But the thing that's most important and what the ground team does exceedingly well is write the procedures so that we can repair it just by reading through this and with a little bit of help from the ground. And, you know, by and large, the equipment is also designed to be fixed like this. So a combination of really good procedures from the smart folks we have on the ground and the design of these different pieces of equipment makes it so that we're able to repair it, and we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm sure having your restroom facilities working is a big relief. I'm going to switch now. I've got some questions from space campers. As you know, Huntsville's the home of space camp. So Mia from Decatur, this is a fantastic question. She says, if you can have one achievement on your gravestone besides being an astronaut, what would it be?
Probably being a good dad.
Well, that was a quick answer. So I might mess up this young lady's name, but Juno Leal from Puerto Rico is wondering, how does it feel to risk your life and leave your family behind, all to travel in space?
You know, we definitely know that when we launch on a rocket and when we live in space here and when we go home, our life is in peril, but at the same time, there's a really fabulous team that has designed this hardware and that is taking care of the operations. And so I would say that we all feel like the risk has been mitigated to such an extent that the benefits far outweigh the risks that we entail. And so all of us that serve here on Space Station are very proud to be able to advance the state of the art in terms of human presence in space and science. So I think all of us feel that it's an even trade. And, you know, sometimes it's hard, you know, when your family is down on Earth and we're up here working, but we're also taken care of in lots of ways. We can call our family practically every day. We have a video conference, so we definitely feel connected even though we're apart and up here on Space Station.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a huge relief to talk to your friends and family on the ground. Cooper from Chicago wants to know, how is this experience in space different from your previous spaceflight experiences?
You know, it's a good question. Last time I spent 58 days in space, and I thought it was about the right length of time. I thought I could have stayed a little bit longer and it would have been okay, and maybe it was the right time to go back after 2 months. But this time, we're, I guess, over 90 days now, and I'm very grateful to have this length of time in space, because the longer you get up here, the more proficient you get at your skills for taking care of station and working with science and repairing the vehicle, but also just feeling comfortable in space. And I tell you what, the view is mind-blowing, and I am very grateful for every day that I can look out the window and take more photographs.
Yeah, we all love seeing the photographs that you guys take up there when you send them back down to Earth. Sarah from Huntsville wants to know if you wanted to be an astronaut when you were in the Army. Was that something that you had a goal of doing?
You know, I think I know that I've thought about being an astronaut since I was about 6, and I think the first time that it really became real to me was when I was at West Point and we had some former astronauts come and speak to us, and that was a very seminal moment for me, because I recognized that even though I was a plebe at West Point, here were these guys who had come and spoken to the Corps of Cadets who had achieved that goal. And so I definitely thought about that when I was in college, and it provided a great motivation to work hard and study in math and science and engineering.
Yeah, it's all paying off right now as you get those spectacular views you were talking about. That wraps up the space camper questions. I wanted to switch gears real quick and talk a little bit about the science you guys are doing up there. I know the science control room here in Huntsville helps you through those experiments. Has there been an experiment that you were working on it and you just paused and thought, wow, this is cool, this is something very significant, for humanity?
You know, I would say that the majority of the science experiments that I've done up here have had a wow factor to me. You know, we do ultrasounds on ourselves guided by a remote guide on the ground. And so we're essentially turning ourselves into ultrasound techs, looking at our body, and the scientists on the ground will be able to understand the differences between living on Earth and living in zero gravity. I've lit fires here on Space Station in a glove box, which I thought was pretty amazing. And today I was helping to set up an experiment with liquid crystals. So all these different experiments, in some respects, have a wow factor, and I hope that someday they have benefits for everyone on planet Earth.
Yeah, I love following the experiments that you guys do. Now, I talk to the folks here in Huntsville all the time about working with you guys, but I want to hear from you. What's the day-to-day interaction like? How much do you work with the people here in Huntsville on a day-to-day basis while you're up in space?
We know it's not every day, but when we have dedicated time for experiments, one thing I particularly like, you know, we have this formal way of talking on our space-to-ground loops, and that's the typical way that we communicate. One thing I especially like when we have experiments with one of the primary operators in Huntsville or sometimes in Cleveland is that we have a dedicated space-to-ground loop, and we can essentially have a conversation back and forth as they help us set up the experiment and look at the results. And I find that very rewarding, and it feels as if you're part of the team and sort of a lab partner with the folks on the ground that are the experts in that area of science. So I've just really enjoyed my time working with the folks in Huntsville.
Well, Tim, I think that wraps up all the time we have. Thank you very much. Again, I know you're very busy. Hope you enjoy the rest of your time up in space and have a safe trip home.
Thank you so much, Josh. I enjoyed talking with you. You guys take care in Huntsville.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the WAAY-TV portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from CBS News.
Station, this is Bill Harwood, CBS News at the Kennedy Space Center. How do you read me?
Hey, Bill, I read you loud and clear.
Well, great. I was just thinking about that the other day. You've been up there, I guess today is 91 days or something like that in your increment, which is nosing up on twice as long as your first flight. And I was just wondering, with Scott Kelly back on the ground and thinking about long-duration flights, does the time fly for you, or does it drag, or is it something in the middle?
Bill, I think all of us on board are just amazed at how fast the time goes. Sometimes, like Tim Peake and I were starting dinner about 8 o'clock last night, and both of us were commenting, man, what happened to the day? It just flew by. And the same thing happens with the weeks as well. By the time you get to Friday and you're looking forward to a little bit of off time on Saturday and Sunday, that week has just zoomed by. So it's almost hard to believe that we've been here for 91 days.
You mentioned off time. You going to get a chance to watch a little March Madness up there pretty soon?
Looking forward to it. We've been able to watch a lot of significant sporting events up here, and it's always a pleasure. We have a projection system here, and so we can watch it on the big screen.
Well, that's great. I was thinking about you again the other day because I remember covering when you got knocked off a flight back. I guess it was in 2011 or maybe 2010, and all the time you put in to get back, and now you're up there. You're 91 days into this flight. I mean, it just strikes me as an amazing personal story and one that you must truly appreciate. The opportunity to do what you're doing. Is it all you'd hoped it would be? What do you think about that?
Well, Bill, I'd have to say that it's a lot more than I expected it to be. And, having taken a little bit longer route to get back here, I think I have a measure of gratitude that may be a little bit uncommon. So every day, no kidding, when I wake up, I am very grateful to be here and for this opportunity. And coincidentally, Steve Bowen was our Capcom this morning, who was able to fill into my role on STS-133 and do such a fabulous job. So it's funny to watch the full circle of events as I spend time up here.
Wow, that's interesting. Tell me about maybe the differences you've noted between your first day up there and now. And I don't mean different modules and things like that. Your personal I don't know what I'm looking for here. Is it your second time around up there? What are some of the differences you've noticed about the way you've adapted to life in space, or just operations in general?
I can actually comment on both those. I think, from the standpoint of the crew member when they come up here, I think your body remembers the time that it spent up here, because it felt as if the adaptation was much faster this time, and almost to the extent that I felt like I picked up after where I left off back in, a few years back in 2009. So from that standpoint, it's really nice to spend more time here, feel more comfortable, and more time to look out the window. And the other observation that is very clear to me is the fact that the operations for human spaceflight have become much more mature. And so things just operate very, very smoothly now. And they did before, but to even a much greater extent now.
Almost like it's mature, stable ops, I guess, since you don't have assembly going on.
Absolutely, we're definitely focused on the mission here, and every different center has gotten so much better in terms of how they conduct operations. It's very impressive to watch.
Tell me a little bit about what it's like going from 6 people to 3 people. I've always thought that it's not like you're crowded with 6, but I always thought it'd be kind of a welcome break to go down to 3 if it was me, just to have more space and more time, I guess, I don't know, personal space to myself. What's it like for you? What's the differences with life with 3 versus 6?
Bill, the change is not big, because it may sound like, we're cramped up in this space station, 6 people in a small area, but space station is really huge. And so from a space standpoint, you don't notice it so much. But I mean, the interactions changed a little bit because, typically we had 3 people down here and we would see our Russian colleagues on occasion. And now Tim Peake and I are here in the US OS, and we have Yuri down on the other end of space station. And so I think, the main thing you notice is that you don't have to coordinate as much if you want to exercise at a different time, for example. And it is a little bit quieter, and it's a different time, but we're also really looking forward to adding Jeff, Alexei, and Oleg to the crew.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. You know, the station's changed quite a bit since Jeff was up there last. What do you think is going to be the biggest surprise for him?
You know, I don't think much is really going to surprise Jeff because he has so much experience up here. You know, from that standpoint, I think he'll just fit right into the groove. I can't see Jeff being surprised by much in terms of the operations because things are very stable now. You know, I think some of the connectivity we have is a little bit better. We have internet, not super fast, but we do have internet. It's a nice feature. And some of those creature comforts that you're used to on the Earth, they mean a whole lot up here.
Yeah, I'm sure about that. But it'll also be good, I guess, to get I mean, he's got an enormous amount of experience. I mean, having another American on board with that level of experience must, I don't think makes life easier for you, but it's got to be welcome.
You know, I think we're definitely looking forward to having Jeff and his expertise on board. I think, you know, there's two sides of the coin. You could have someone who's brand new up here who is learning for the first time, and that's a fun process to watch. Or you can have someone who's super experienced, and like Jeff, for example, and we can learn a lot from him. Especially, you know, one thing I'm especially looking forward to talking to Jeff about is his photography expertise, because we're developing expertise, but Jeff has a real passion for photography, and we're hoping to learn a lot from him in that area.
Well, your pictures have been pretty good, Tim, so keep them coming for sure. You guys have a pretty busy schedule coming up here in the near term. I guess you got a Progress, a Cygnus coming up at the end of the month, and then presumably SpaceX in early April. Talk to me a little bit about visiting vehicles and what you have to do to make all that work.
We definitely practice for the grappling of this vehicle, because we have a free flyer capture scenario in which we use a robotic arm to grab onto that vehicle so that it can be docked onto station, or berthed onto station, actually. So from that standpoint, there's some training involved, and then there's the excitement of watching that vehicle come in and then grabbing it with the robotic arm. But then after that, it's a lot of logistics, and we're bringing up lots of equipment, and it's a big station, but there's not a huge amount of extra room for stowage. And so it's definitely important for us to get things organized in such a manner that when all these new pieces of equipment come on board, we have the right place to put it, and we can still do our normal science operations here on board. So that's going to be the bulk of our work for the next several weeks.
Now, Beam is coming up, I guess, on SpaceX 8. Does the ground pull that out and mount it outside, or do you guys do that?
It's going to be a ground operation, and from the inside, we're going to be the ones that inflate this new vehicle, and so we're excited about that whole operation.
Tell me about that a little bit. That strikes me as a potentially useful technology down the road, whether it's around the moon or a Mars habitat of some kind to help you get there. How comfortable are you with the whole idea of an inflatable module? You can tell somebody on the street, they go, "What?" And obviously they know what they're doing. But how important is that technology?
Well, I think the technology has tremendous potential because it's very expensive to get things into space. There's this huge weight penalty, and you can calculate how much things are going to cost based upon how heavy they are, based upon the state of the art. And if we can take a smaller volume and make it larger, that has tremendous potential benefit for all future human exploration. And so from that standpoint, we're very excited about it, and we'll make sure that we do things safely, because it's a new technology, and it's attached on to this vehicle. So we'll go through all the different measures to make sure that it's safe, and hopefully prove that it's a very viable and useful technology in the future.
I know the purpose of this first run is just to inflate it and let it sit there and let the sensors do their thing. But do you guys ever go inside this thing, or is it strictly a matter of inflating it and just letting it sit?
It started out that we weren't really going to go in at all, and now we'll go in on occasion to change out some sensors. But it's a good size volume, and so maybe at the end of its life there'll be an additional purpose for it. But for right now, it's just open the hatch, change out some sensors on occasion, and then close the hatch. But that's probably the best bet, the best way to deal with new technology, because we try to mitigate risk in every way that we can, and that's probably the best way to do that.
Well, listen, Tim, thanks a lot. They've given me the old wrap here, and I wish you best of luck for the rest of your increment and look forward to seeing you back on the ground in June.
Thanks, Bill. It's great chatting with you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Take care.
Station, this is
You too.
Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes the event.
Thank you, WAAY-TV and CBS News. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.